was my mentor, and he was also my boss. Like our next speaker, Jim Jones, he also started as a staffer in the U.S. Senate. Recently, we've celebrated the 40th anniversary of the River of the Return Wilderness, now known as the Frank, River of the Wilderness. Laura, thank you for mentioning how people can link up with the Frank Institute on the Florida there. I also want people to be aware that it's really part of the Frank Church Society. This is a group of people that gather in intimate settings, sort of living room, salon type of discussions in Idaho to discuss issues at hand. Recently, the Frank Church Institute has commissioned a very extensive research project in the 5 Intermountain states of Wyoming, Montana, Nevada, Utah, and Idaho to test people's sentiments on democracy, how they're feeling about our country, and really to get to the bottom of how people are feeling in the region about partisan divide, if you will. This was a major piece of research that was done by Morning Consult, and we partner with the Idaho Policy Institute at Boise University. Getting a little noise in the background here, but that's a little bit about the Frank Church Institute. I'm excited about this program. I had a chance to get to know the author beforehand. It's always nice to talk to a general. I'm a former Army officer myself, just like Jim Jones, and just like Frank Church, actually. So there are a lot of Army officers involved in and veterans involved in tonight's program. I'm going to do a handoff to my good friend Jim Jones. He's an excellent and a wonderful public servant. His voice is really needed right now in Idaho. He's one who's challenging us about our roots and our values. Jim, thank you.
Congressman, thank you. It's a great honor to be here virtually. I was hoping that we'd actually be there, but the pandemic, in the Army, we always say the enemy gets a vote. And in this case, the pandemic gets a vote. Every time you got to make sure that you're taking it against, and so I think it's much safer to be here. But I'm also happy. I noticed that there are people from all over the country that were tuning in today. So I'm thankful that everyone's here. Thank you.
Well, we hope to give you a warm Idaho welcome at some point when you come out, and it's a standing invitation for sure. And I hope you and your students can join us maybe on some conference in the future. I forgot to mention to everybody that we're a partner with the U.S. Association of Former Members of Congress, where we bring in bipartisan team of former members of Congress. Every year we do this to the campus and the community. So it's a really great program. And I don't know if you do it at Hamilton, and I've been to Annapolis, but as part of the program, and we do go to West Point, and maybe you've seen some former members there, but it's a bipartisan program, and we're very happy to sponsor that at BSU.
Oh, that's excellent. I don't know about Hamilton. I haven't been here that long, but I do know about it at West Point. Yeah. And one of the great things about being at West Point was seeing members of Congress and the link that they had to their cadets. It was it's a wonderful thing. So I certainly huge fan of engagement with the members of Congress, whether it's at the academies or whether it's at colleges. So great program.
Well, one of my joys in being a member of Congress was making the calls to those outstanding leaders, men and women, to let them know that they had a nomination to the Academy. It was always a great joy to do that. I know we're looking for Jim Jones. I'm sure he's got to just push the right button. I'll leave it up to Rebecca and Laura to put me in permanent black so that you could maybe start your program.
And and Rebecca, if you want me to, I'd be happy to start and just tell a little bit about my book. If you want me to do that,
that would be great.
Great. All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Ty Seidule. I'm a retired Brigadier General in the U.S. Army, and I'm a professor emeritus at West Point. I'm also now a Chamberlain Fellow at Hamilton College in upstate New York, which is where I'm joining you from today. And I wrote a book called Robert E. Lee and Me, A Southerner's Reckoning with the Myth of the Lost Cause. And I'll just tell you why I wrote this book and where it started from. In 2015, I wrote a video. I wrote that became a video saying that the cause of the Civil War, was slavery, and I did it early in late 2014, early 2015. It came out about a month after the Charleston massacre, where a white supremacist slaughtered 9 black churchgoers in Charleston, and it went viral. It's had like 35 million views, and it turns out the Army does not like Army officers going viral, even though I said the Civil War was about slavery. And I got death threats. The Army investigated me for political speech. I got various newspaper accounts criticizing me. And I realized that history is dangerous. And what I mean by that is that history forms our identity. It's our myth. And if someone challenges that, then the reaction can be ferocious. And I found out one other aspect of that, which is in 2010, maybe a little bit earlier, I was chair of the memorialization committee at West Point, and we were putting up a memorial room to the West Point graduates who died serving the nation from the War of 1812 through the War on Terror. And West Point had lost over 100 graduates killed in the War on Terror. I mean, our losses were significant. We had no central place to put them. So I came up with this idea to put them in one place. What happened, though, was there was this one question: should Confederate graduates go in there? And I argued strongly that no, they shouldn't, because they abrogated their oath. They fought against their country to destroy their country. They killed U.S. Army soldiers for the worst possible reason, to create a slave republic. And by the way, the building that was going in was actually the money was given by an ardent anti-Confederate, and the law said that no unworthy subject should go in this building. And by that, he meant Confederates. So I thought I had this slam dunk argument. So I went up and gave this to our leadership at West Point, and the superintendent and the leadership said, no, we want to bring the Confederates into this building because we want to bring people together. We don't want to be like the Sunni and Shia fighting forever, which is the worst historical argument in the history of the world. So I lost, and I went back to my wife, and I tail between my legs, chin on my chest, saying, I gave this brilliant argument that in fact we should exclude these Confederates. And I lost. And she said, well, Ty, did you tell them why this was so important to you? I said, no, of course not. I'm a historian. I'm a historian. I tell people other people's stories. I'm not going to tell my own. She said, well, listen, if you ever want to convince people of this subject, you're going to have to be honest with them about yourself. And my wife is congenitally incapable of lying. And I grew up lying because my culture did. And so I said, okay, maybe that's the way to do it. And I got a chance to do that in 2017, right after the white supremacist violence in Charlottesville. My alma mater, Washington and Lee University, invited me back to give a speech. And so I went back in there to give that speech, and in Lee Chapel, and many of you here may not have been in there, but it's where Robert E. Lee is buried. There's a statue behind him of the whole chapel is actually it's meant to worship Robert E. Lee. There's no Christian iconography in there at all. And on that slab of marble that is the altar lies a statue of Robert E. Lee. And so in front of that audience, I called Lee a traitor for slavery. And I was worried that I would be met with derision, that I would be met with catcalls and tomatoes. But instead, I got a standing ovation. And then I realized, but what I did in that, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this, but what I did was I gave my story. So rather than be a know-it-all historian, I did what historians never do, which is to give my own background. And that really was, I knew that if I gave my own background, maybe I could get more people to accept the facts of the Civil War and accept the fact that racism is the virus in the American dirt. It's our eternal pandemic. But the only way I could do that was to tell my own story. So that's what I did. And in this book, I follow the course of my own life. And as I was growing up as a kid, and by the way, Rebecca, I'm going to keep going, but if Jim if he gets on, just stop me and I'll stop. But as I was growing up as a kid in Alexandria, Virginia, Northern Virginia, right outside DC, that area was very much Old South. There are more, a law in the 1950s said that every street that it goes north-south has to be named for a Confederate. And so I grew up really revering Robert E. Lee. I mean, when I say revere, some of you may have seen the movie This Is Spinal Tap. It's the first mockumentary, and the rock star said on a scale that they have this amplifier, and they have this fake British accent. They say, I have an amplifier that goes to 11. And they said, well, why did it go to 11? It's because it's one louder, of course. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would have put Robert E. Lee at an 11. And even though I was a good Episcopalian, went to church every Sunday, ended up being a head acolyte for several years, I would have put Jesus at maybe 5, maybe 6. But so I had a reverential view of Lee, and the books I had, the movies I saw, all gave me the impression that Lee was the one to be emulated. In fact, my first chapter book was Meet Robert E. Lee, based that had Lee sort of this figure on loan from Mount Olympus, with a huge Confederate flag in the background, and Traveler, his horse, is leading Lee. In fact, the horse is so smart he doesn't even need the reins to be guided. Lee is thinking about the next brilliant plan.